Hi again then guys, and welcome to another specific car review from Forza Motorsport 7, and straight off the bat this is one of those videos where you'll get to see me having a bit of fun with the car rather than just driving it as quickly as possible, and there are definitely some cars which lend themselves more towards doing that, stuff which is more of a novelty car rather than just a straight up performance machine. To some degree stuff like the limo, even the Mercedes racing truck, although that is a race car, they have that kind of novelty factor where it's almost more about just enjoying having a crazy car on the game than just trying to be the fastest or win as many races as possible or set the best possible lap time. And of course, in honour, I guess, of Fast 8, which I actually quite enjoyed. I obviously don't go into it expecting realism, but as far as the Fast and Furious movies go, I thought it was okay. But one of the notable scenes from very early on in the film is the race between this Chevy Fleetline in, let's just say, not mint condition, it'll need a bit more than a bit of T-cut, goes up against another car, a more heavily modified one, and of course it wins because Fast and Furious. But with that being said, there is potential for a car like this, because at the end of the day it's a classic muscle car slash luxury car, so it definitely has potential to be a useful machine. Not just for fun, but it could be good for racing as well. That's not the primary purpose, but you never know. So, for those who don't have the DLC, what can you expect if you do get it? Well, the price on the car is technically 84,000 credits, but of course you don't actually pay that because you get it for free and you only have to pay if you buy a second one. But still, that price isn't too bad as far as muscle cars go. Now, the class on it is B. It sits at 549 PI, which is reasonable, especially given that you're looking at 475 horsepower, 553 foot-pounds of torque, and it's actually pretty light. But the fact that it doesn't have a front end or doors probably helps with that. It weighs 1,315 kilos. Now, by far, the biggest thing about this car which you'll want to explore is the fun factor. It can be used competitively, but that's just not really the point. Initially, when I started driving it, I didn't expect to enjoy this car that much because, and this will immediately have registered, I think, for Gran Turismo players who are on the channel, this is very familiar to Gran Turismo 6 players. Not specifically to the car, but it's very reminiscent of a particular DLC car which was on Gran Turismo 6, Mario Andretti's Hudson Hornet, which looks remarkably similar to this car, but is, funnily enough, in better condition, despite being a similar age. Now, that car on Gran Turismo isn't that great. It's very expensive, you can't do much to it, and it's more of a collector's piece. It has historical significance, but that's about it. It's not bad, it's just not great. This one is a bit more usable in the world of Forza than that one is in the world of Gran Turismo, although visually they are very similar cars. Now, this one is a lot more fun than I was expecting it to be. I thought that it would be a little bit cumbersome through corners, that it would be probably just too tail happy, but funnily enough both of those things are wrong, because the handling is actually pretty good, because the weight is nice and low, and at the same time it doesn't actually spin its wheels all the time. It tends to spin one wheel rather than both, so it's actually not that tail happy, not unless you want it to be, and when you want it to be, even then, you can't really initiate a drift just using the throttle that easily. You have to actually use the handbrake, or the e-brake as it's called in America, to initiate that drift, but then once you do so, the car is very good at drifting. And this particular version that you can see me drifting and messing about with in the video is basically stock. All I've done to it is changed out the gearbox to allow it to have a higher reversing speed. So apart from that, you're looking at basically just how the car arrives. So the potential which it has is definitely there. You can throw the car through corners, you can drive it backwards pretty well, which you'd hope so, given the movie, although I must say, it's not as quick as it was in the movie, in reverse. Nitrous or not, it's nowhere near that quick, which is one of the reasons why I swapped out the gearbox. Now, when you do swap it out, you can extend the final drive and the gears much longer to get a higher reversing speed. This one in the video, when tuned, can do about 80 or 90 in reverse, but again, that's still not as quick as in the movie, nowhere near. But it has potential for tuning. And I don't just mean for driving backwards, of course, in a conventional way. The car will always have the novelty factor working best in its favour, But at the same time, I do think this one has potential, in a similar way to having a stripped out Cadillac limo as a Nordschleifer weapon, which it can be. This one is similar. You can have it as a stripped out, almost garden shed special weekend racer kind of muscle car, where you're not necessarily going to beat everything, I wouldn't go that far, but it has some tuning ability. You can convert it to all-wheel drive, that kind of usual stuff, so it's definitely a good canvas to work from. I would primarily recommend it for the fun factor, stuff like drifting, gymkhana potentially, tricks with driving in general, and then maybe a secondary thing is more the racing side of things. So not a big surprise there, but what did surprise me is how much I actually enjoyed the car, because the handling is relatively unique, the way it performs is not really like anything else that I've driven in the game so far, and I found it a lot more fun than I was expecting to. So it is certainly worth checking out, even though of course you have to pay real money for the DLC or buy the VIP edition or whatever to get it included, so whether or not you want to do that is another question entirely. What I can confirm though is that it's fun and it certainly has potential. But that's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.